Are you looking to ditch your bowden tube and have a direct drive extruder? Well, here's a guide to fitting the E3D Titan Aero. I want to start by making it clear that this is not an upgrade for everyone. In fact, for some people this might be more trouble than it's worth. For me, I wanted to experiment, it was a requested video and it suited my particular application. What am I talking about? Let's have a closer look at exactly what the Titan Aero is. We'll start with the E3D V6 all metal hot end. Most people will be quite familiar with this, and some people might have even heard of the E3D Titan extruder. Well, the Titan Aero is a combination of those two, an all metal hot end directly mounted to a direct drive extruder. To get mine in Australia, it cost me $108 US from Matter Hackers. Wherever you order from, make sure you get all your options correct for your particular printer. Here's a comparison with a bowden tube on the left and direct drive on the right. We can see the extruders for both are highlighted in yellow, but on the left we have an orange section where there's a gap in between the extruder and the hot end. Fitting this part will eliminate that gap. Hopefully that lets you understand a little bit more about this modification. Let's start by looking at some fors and against. On the positive side, this is an all metal extruder, which means you can have much higher temperatures and extrude more exotic filaments. This is a geared extruder, so it's going to have 3 times the torque. This mod will eliminate your bowden tube. On paper that should mean better print quality because you need less retraction and you have more precision. This particular extruder has easily adjustable tension, so you can alter it to suit the filament that you're using. Now for the cons. Because it sticks out further from where it mounts, you will lose 15mm of your Y-axis travel. The mount that I feature in this video is quite complicated to print. You will be adding weight to the gantry by moving the stepper motor onto the moving parts. Therefore, on paper at least, you'll have more ringing and you might not be able to print quite as fast as before. Probably the biggest thing about this mod is it's quite complicated to install. In addition to the physical fitment, there will be wiring and firmware changes as well as some calibration on top of that. Now my particular application is on my Tevo Tornado, and that's because it has a 0.8mm oversized nozzle. This means that it can print very fast, but it also means it's hard to control stringing and things like that. I can confirm that everything I show you in this video is also compatible with the original CR-10 and the Ender 3. You can see here that the fan shrouds are identical. It's also worth noting that the Tevo Tornado comes with a cloned version of the E3D Titan extruder. That means for the Tornado that some of these steps are simplified compared to what you're going to find with the Ender 3 and CR-10. Anyway, let's get into it by looking at the printed mount that I picked. This mounting adapter is linked below, and I picked it because it supports auto bed leveling as well as a 50-15 part cooling fan all in one piece. The downside is the amount of support material you need to get it to print successfully. It took me about 3 goes. After you've printed, the job comes now of removing all of that support material. I had quite a pile when I was done, but eventually the part was ready to go. Well, ready to go apart from the front of the fan duct that seemed to have snapped clean off. I modeled and printed this little flat blanking panel, and I used a 3D pen to weld it into place before doing some filing to clean it all up. Not the prettiest thing, but once it was done it was airtight and ready to fit to the printer. It's worth testing that your 50-15 blower fan is going to fit. You can see I had to grind a little groove out to get this notch to clear and the bolt holes to line up. After a bit of stuff around, that was all together and I was ready to start my physical install. There are really comprehensive instructions from E3D. I'm going to follow them mostly, but with this mount you have to deviate in some stages. There are quite a lot of parts, so make sure you take your time and double check everything to avoid disaster. An additional step for me was pulling off my old 0.8 nozzle and doing a cold pull to get it ready to go. In the beginning I was following the E3D instructions almost exactly. There's a lot of little tips in there about where things should be sitting and how tight you should do things up. For instance, the thermistor and heater cartridges should only be done up so far, otherwise you'll crush them. There's also a good safety tip about using a multimeter to test the resistance to your heating element. As they say, it's more convenient to do that than to put out a fire. Please ensure that both of these crucial parts survive a wiggle test so they're not going to fall out while you're printing. The gear in the standard Tornado extruder does not have a grub screw, therefore I had to use some pliers to pry it off carefully. When it will no longer reach, you put a bar or something underneath and that will give you the leverage you need to get it off without scratching anything. You need to remove all of your old hot end parts back to the bare mount. After this you can test fit your printed part, and for me fortunately everything lined up perfectly. There's 4 mounting screws but we're only going to use 3. You're going to use the first, second and fourth but not the third because it's going to foul on the extruder gear. Therefore, as this text says, do not include it, you're just going to have to remove it later. There's quite a bit more weight cantilevered now, so make sure you do up the other 3 very tightly. There's a short M3 screw that goes in the bottom right hole, and that's going to hold everything together so we can do the rest of our assembly. Here's a bit where I realise it's going to hit and I have to remove that 3rd screw. These 2 gears are meant to sit flush, but this is as far as I could push down the little one that goes on the end of the stepper motor. The lever arm now slides onto place on the remaining piece of shaft, and then you have to carefully insert the little assembly that changes the spring tension. It's very easy to drop this, so beware. Put the thermal paste on the base of the thread as shown in the instructions, but here's where we have to deviate. The fan duct is in the way, so we're going to assemble without the hot end screwed in. You take a 23mm piece of PTFE tube, slide it into place inside the 1.75mm adapter, insert the little bearing, and then simply push everything carefully into place. After that, we're going to take our longest 2 screws and we're going to use them on the 2 left-hand holes. For me, the thread only just reached, so I had to compress everything with my hand to get the thread started, and then I can do it up nice and tightly. After this, follow the instructions to insert the other 2 screws. The 3rd one is going to be quite tight, but the 4th one can't be too tight or it would compress the assembly and stop everything from moving the way it should. This is the one with the Loctite and the funny washer. You're only meant to torque this one very lightly, and you're relying on the Loctite and that funny washer to stop it from vibrating free. To make this next bit easier, I temporarily removed the heater cartridge and then I reached underneath and screwed the whole assembly up into place. Make sure you haven't dropped your PTFE tube. As you can see, I decided to mount mine on a slight angle, and this is for cable management. When you view from the top, you can now see that the 2 sets of wires avoid the fan duct. Now's a great time to check by hand if everything is rotating freely, and if it is, you can introduce the fan and use the 4 self-tapping screws to screw it into the heatsink. After this, our last step is to install our part cooling fan, and I needed 2 M3x20 bolts. They go through and cut a thread as you insert them in the printed part. After this, your physical install is finished. For me, that was really fiddly. I lost count of the amount of times I dropped things on the floor and had to scrounge around finding them so I could keep pushing forward. The bad news is that we're only just beginning. Now we have to concern ourselves with the wiring. Previously, our extruder wiring only needed to reach the top left of the printer, but now it has to reach all the way to the top right, which it doesn't. I decided to extend it on the mainboard side with a wiring kit linked in the description. About 30 centimeters with a male and female DuPont connector at each end will do the job. On my Tornado and a CR-10, the extension wires that come with the kit just aren't long enough. I decided to cut the wires near the plugs and then cut the original wires from the Tornado before soldering and heat shrinking the new plugs into place. Please make sure you get the positive and negative correct for the 2 fans. The Tornado comes with cheap plastic conduit, so I took the chance to upgrade to some flexible sleeving. I've got a little bit better at my technique thanks to comments from some previous videos. I segmented the sleeving into 2 and used electrical tape to tidily join the X stepper motor and end stop wires. I inserted a length of tubing into the sleeving and then cable tied the other end to the printed adapter. Finally, I used 8 M3 spacer washers per side to mount my BL Touch at the correct height. Excellent, that's the wiring done. So are we ready to print? I'm afraid not. Now we have to tweak the firmware. There's a detailed guide to this process linked in the description. Here is a very concise summary. Everything is in configuration.h and you're going to search for whatever comes up on the box on screen. If you previously had a non-geared extruder, you're going to change the value from false to true. The Tornado already had true. The E-steps for the Tornado was already correct, but for any other printer it's going to be roughly triple. You're meant to alter your hot end thermistor from number 1 to number 5, but I'm not sure about this because mine is now under reading by about 30 degrees Celsius. Max temp can now be raised all the way up to 285. There's further instructions for our mount also included in the Thingiverse link. The Y portion of the bed size will be reduced by 15 to 285, and therefore your Y minimum position needs to be set to -15 to home correctly. If you're using auto bed leveling, you'll need to update the new offsets for your probe. I measured 21 and -45. You'll also need to upgrade your probing grid. These values work perfectly for a Tornado with this setup. Other printers you'll need to do a little bit of calculation. After this you can upload, and if everything is working correctly, the probe should now home in the very center of the bed. Okay, now I promise we are getting close. Time for our final tweaks and calibration. First step is to hot tighten, because if you remember, everything was only finger tight before for the hot end. You're going to raise your temperature up to 285, and then you're going to support the heater block and use some sort of spanner to give it a firm tighten, but not so tight that you shear it straight off. After this you can insert the silicone sock, make sure it's seated in place, because the next step is a PID auto tune, which is always a good idea when you've got a new hot end. You're going to connect via terminal, that could be Pronterface, Simplify 3D or Octoprint, and you're going to use the M303 for PID Auto Tune. We're going to enter M303, S, and then the temperature that you use the most. For me, that is 200. After you send this command to the printer, it's going to heat up the hot end and cycle it up and down 5 times. When it's finished in the terminal, it'll have your values for P, I, and D. There's a specific G-code command to save them. It's M301, so we're going to enter that in the terminal, followed by P, I, and D, substituting in the 3 values the auto-tune returned. You should receive acknowledgement that it's been stored. So the final step is to use an M500 to save to EEPROM. If you don't have the EEPROM enabled, you'll need to put the M301 script in your start G-code instead. Now, if you remember, the Tornado already comes with a clone of the Titan geared extruder, and therefore my steps per millimeter when I tested them were spot on. Just in case you're doing this on a different printer, here's a quick recap of the process for calibrating your E-steps. I'm showing this on an Ender 3, but the process is the same. You're going to mark 120 millimeters of filament with a permanent marker, and then you're going to manually extrude 100 millimeters in whatever software that you like. The filament is going to be pushed through, and you'll see your mark getting ever closer. Afterwards, you're going to measure how much was left. In this instance, it was 22, which means only 98 millimeters was extruded instead of 100. Here's some maths. You're going to divide your desired value by the measured value and times it by your current E-steps. They were 93, and that gave me a new adjusted E-step of 94.86. Just like before in the terminal, you're going to enter M92E and then the new number, and then finally M500 to save. Again, if you have no EEPROM, M92 will have to go in your start G-code. Our absolute final steps before we can print are a couple of adjustments to our slicing software. Remember, we lost a little bit of Y-axis where we need to substitute 15 from the original number. For me, that went from 300 to 285. As we've lost the bowden tube, our retraction is going to go back to only 1 millimeter, but this is a starting point and you can tune it further. During this process, my fan upgraded from a 4010 to a 5015, therefore I only needed 40% fan speed. The duct unfortunately blows straight onto the heater block, and if I had it any higher than this, it will give me a false thermal runaway protection alert. Finally, we're ready to print, and just in case you didn't know, you can turn that little thumb wheel to adjust the extruder tension. You'll see the trapped nut on the inside moving in and out to compress the spring to make it tighter, or vice versa. My 0.8mm nozzle is pretty tricky and the slicing software doesn't always agree with it. Therefore, I chose to do a couple of more little calibrations by printing some single wall calibration cubes to get my extrusion multiplier just right. The Titan Aero extruder feeds from the top instead of the side, so therefore I thought the next thing I should print is an updated filament holder. I printed this one here, turns out pretty good, still a little bit of over extrusion, but then I realized afterwards that you can use the original one rotated 90 degrees on top. With my large 0.8 nozzle, I can't print quite as fast as usual, but it was important to me to not lose any quality for that given speed. Therefore, I printed one of these calibration cubes to test the ringing around the letters. As you can see, it is present, but in my opinion it's fate and well within what I'm willing to accept from my printer. Now, the large nozzle definitely lets me print fast, but it doesn't make the best looking prints. Therefore, I decided to push it and see how it was now printing with this owl, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. There's still some tuning to do in my profile, but at 0.4mm layer heights, I think this thing looks outstanding, probably helped by how nice the gold E3D PLA looks too. In terms of print quality, this one was a tick for me. The last thing I wanted to test was a longer print, because the instructions warned that if your mount wasn't very good, that it would obstruct airflow and things could overheat and clog. Therefore, I printed this enormous vase. It finished without a hitch, and as you can see up close, it's got really nice, even, consistent extrusion. So for me, despite all of the hassle, I was happy with this improvement on my printer. Would I recommend it for everyone? Absolutely not. For most people, you should save your money. I just had specific needs with my large 0.8 nozzle that this happened to fill. Hopefully you can make an informed decision now that you've seen this process and the hassle that's involved. That brings us to a close. Please comment below. Have you used this before? Were you considering it? Has this video changed your mind? Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy 3D printing.
G'day, it's Michael again. If you liked the video, then please click like. If you want to see more content like this in future, click subscribe and make sure you click on the bell to receive every notification. If you really want to support the channel and see exclusive content, become a patron. Visit my Patreon page. See you next time.